Hello there. Thanks for joining me. I am Dr. Jen, and this is My Life as a Landlord. I am so pleased that you've joined me for today's show, and apparently all of you out there love when I nerd out. So today's show, I am totally nerding out. Recently, I did an episode about the 2025 Canada Rental Housing Report. So, of course, I have to do the US version, but the US version of the rental report isn't out yet. However, what is out is the US demand for housing projections over the next 20 years. So, in today's episode, that's what I'm reporting on. I'm going to share screen and go through, for those of you watching on YouTube at My Life as a Landlord, you're going to see on screen the US report from the Joint Center of Housing Studies from Harvard University. This is dated January of 2025. And we're going to go through this report. It's not long, and it does show the different results and methodologies, but the report itself is actually not long. That's actually kind of cool. Let's see. Let me go to share screen, share. Here we go, share screen, which is this one, share. Okay, here we go. So 30 pages, that's not a lot. And I'm pulling up, I have my hard copy one in front of me. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. Very interesting results. None of this is probably going to surprise you, which is actually kind of cool and also kind of sad at the same time. So it starts off introduction with some of the conclusions already. Primary finding with this study in the US is that the growth in the number of households in the United States is expected to slow in the coming decades. So population growth overall is expected to go down. I think that makes sense. You've got a bunch of baby boomers who are departing, and you've got folks who are consolidating. You're going to see through this factors like immigration, travel. Let's see, let me make sure I've got all this. Aging folks, diverse population, and surprise, surprise, not everybody wants the same footprint, the same layout of rentals. Not everybody wants a one-bedroom condo in a high-rise. They want other stuff, which is interesting. Okay, let me keep going here. So this is the primary finding here. Primary finding, growth in number of households in the US expected to grow in the decades. And this is projected. If you look at this will be the lowest rate of growth in any decade in the last 100 years. So a huge slowdown in population growth. And as a result, you'll see housing demands. Rising mortality, fewer births on an aging population is causing this. And down here, we've got these projections also display future changes in household demographics resulting, again, from aging and increasing diverse population. Makes total sense to me. So housing demand is going to go down. It will also increase the demand for accessibility. This talks in here saying that the more people who are householders are going to want concessions for accessibility, things like handlebars, ramps, easily reachable things like just access to the unit in itself, whether it's an elevator or sometimes you've got a chairlift. You've got to accommodate those folks in the older households that may or may not have a disability. You're also looking at demographic changes. While many older households lost will be non-Hispanic whites, high shares of these newly formed households will be headed by people of color. And so you've got more people of color, non-whites, who are going to be, they want more houses, more household growth. But overall, the household growth is going to go down and housing demand is going to go down. Talks a little bit about data and methodology. Again, we're still in the introduction part of this. I'm just flipping through as we go through pages 3, 4. And of course, I love all this. If you're looking at this in the PDF, now, of course, I've included the PDF in the write-up of this podcast. So if you're looking at this on your phone or on the computer, YouTube, you can go in, and all of these footnotes here have these amazing hyperlinks, so that if you really want to know how did they get that, you just go right to the hyperlinks. I am such a nerd when it comes to that stuff that I'll go back and actually verify the perspective on some of them. I didn't do them all, but I do have some of them. And love using the census as well. They go into the projection methodology, which is important. Anybody who's done any kind of research, whether qualitative or quantitative, you really want to get the perspective on this, which is good. And then household growth projections. So they've got some different figures here. Again, this is talking about the different demographics in the households by age and by race, and declining population growth in the Census Bureau's 2023 projections as we go through here. And it's just talking more about people who are, let's see, I am on, oh boy, I'm already on page 14. They've got some incredible graphs in here. So this is really interesting about immigration and historical average for population growth, even looking all the way back from 1990 to present. And then, of course, looking forward into both 2025 to 2035 and then 2035 to 2045. So it's got a couple of different scenarios here of if you have low immigration, what is projected to be what they're calling the main series, and then the high immigration. And of course, this is all dependent on immigration law. President Trump is in now, and so he's got all kinds of agendas on immigration, good, bad, and different. This could impact the results of this study, which again has come out in January of 2025. So immigration is sort of the big question mark here. We've seen what immigration has done on the Canadian side, on north side of the border. I'll keep going here. So this is figure 3. If you haven't seen some of these great figures, please do pull this up if you want to know more. And then they've just got some amazing graphs about births and deaths and the rising mortality rate crossing the line between births and deaths. It looks like it's going to come together somewhere around 2040, which is kind of scary. So it's going to go down looking in towards 2045. And let's see. So it talks a lot more about immigration and the projections of immigration. And that's on page 11. Figure 5 looks at that pace of household growth. And older households, talking about age here, boomers and millennials. And then page 14 is bringing up some really interesting stuff, especially when it comes to single person household and married couples without children. This, of course, is driving population growth down because lots of folks are either not getting married, or if they are getting married, they're getting a dog or a pet instead of having children. So it's changing the demographics for sure. Figure 8, this is on page 15. Higher numbers of older males in middle-aged households will lead to a growth of different household types. And one particular thing, because I'm recording this in Hawaii, multi-generational households are on the rise. That's normal here in Hawaii, but it's starting to become more normal around the United States, not just in the islands. And so I think you're seeing that many generations under the one roof because of affordability and because of care, which also can lead back to affordability. If grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle need a care home, but they want to live independently, but they need help, you either can't find it or you certainly can't find it in an affordable manner. And so you've got more multi-generations living under the same roof, whether you've got own spaces like basement suites or building out the garage or maybe a carriage home or something like that. And in other podcasts, we can talk more about how that might impact revenue generation and the affordability of a home in general if we're talking about a single family home. But multi-generational households are definitely on the rise according to this study. And it goes into more of this certainly on figure 9 and figure 10 and page 17. And then it gets back into demographics, shift in racial and ethnic mix of households. And then it goes right into this. Is actually really interesting how it all works about different ethnicities and race for the demand. Page 20 is very interesting So we're talking figure 13. Of course, now we're talking about population growth and housing demand. That's the whole point of this study. But figure 13 on page 20 is talking about the baseline demand for additional housing units in the next decade. So so from 2025 to 2035, I'm just going to go with the main, because here they do a projection, a low projection, a main, and then a high projection. I'm just going to go with the main, and we're just going to talk about the sort of the middle of the road for the next 10 years. So they're saying the projected household growth is about 9 million, right? So they're saying housing units in the thousands. So they report 8,590, but then of course you add a 1,000 to that, and then projected additional vacant unit demand. So they're projecting that vacant units for rent or for sale nationwide would be about 300,000. Second homes enters the conversation. That's about 200,000. And then this is a very important part here: projected units to replace the stock demolished or removed. And this is about over 2 million. 2 million. And I have to chuckle because this is something that I've been talking about for a long time, going, our existing housing stock that was built in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, even going up into the 2000s, things like deferred maintenance, things like the updated building codes, they're not getting followed. And so as a result, you have these massive capital expenditure projects on updating water lines and sewer lines, especially if we're talking about either in condos or apartment buildings. Very, very expensive things. But if you're talking also single family homes, you're talking duplexes, triplexes, also multifamily, they're all aging as well, right? Time's not going to stop. They're aging. And so at least people are being realistic about the age of the existing rental stock, that some of this stuff is going to have to be demolished and likely rebuilt. So there's going to be demand anyway, because we're going to lose some of our supply. Now, this is really interesting because in the very next figure, which is still on page 20, figure 14, baseline demand for these are additional housing units for the following decade. So 2035 to 2045. I won't go into the specifics, but I will tell you that it's about 3/4 of what the next decade is. So you can see that just by the aging population, as folks are starting to pass away in the next 10 to 20 years, that the housing demand is going to go down because of mortality rates. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the birth rates are right around 2040, cross that line where population growth in the 2040s are going to go down. It looks like it's going to start impacting that unless people start having more children, which again becomes unaffordable. So then the next page, page 21, I'm looking at figure 15, and they're talking mostly, they're saying, with less household growth, demand for new housing units is projected to decline. Well, of course, the housing demand is going to go down because there are less people to demand that housing. And so other factors, the risk factors, I like this. I like when people really check their assumptions. I think this is really important. So I'm on page 22, and the heading on this page is pretty telling: risk factors in the new unit demand estimates. So there's several factors that they look at on this page. The first major factor that could result in more construction in the future suggested by these new unit demand projections is the current undersupply. Current undersupply. So just the fact that we need more doesn't necessarily we're going to have more. So the first major factor could result in more construction in the future. Okay. Now, the current undersupply of housing units. This is where Mike and I live. We live in trying to supply more housing, and we can't supply more housing because of bureaucratic red tape, all the different changes, different requirements, different bylaws, zoning, etc., all resulting in permit time. Building developer of any kind only needs a building permit to build. So the faster you get that permit in that developer's hand, the faster they can act. That's their legal ticket to actually act. So that's the concern over the building units. But the second major unknown factor affecting demand for new units is the future level of immigration. Now, I can't stress this enough. It is such a question mark that we have no idea how immigration is going to impact housing demand in the future. This could be the high level, this could be the low level, all dependent on immigration alone. So immigration, it says right in here, immigration is volatile and largely policy driven. Hello, we know this. So talking about the new administration in 2025, strict controls on immigration and increased deportations, we have no idea how this is going to work, whether or not it's going to, the demand is going to be on the low side or the high side, depending on immigration. But there's also other factors that are concerning the demand for housing. And it's straight on affordability. On the negative side of this is home prices, rents, and ownership costs outpace deteriorating housing affordability. So you know everything's going up. It's really putting everybody under the crunch. But on the positive side, you've got domestic migration to more affordable areas. So places that can support affordable living is where people are going to go so that they can, eat. So page 23 goes to the conclusion. And then that's the end of the survey. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff in the appendix, but that's it. But the growth, I don't want to read it word for word, but I'm just going to sum up for everybody as we go. Today I've gone through the U.S. report from Joint Center Housing Studies of Harvard University from January 2025, talking about U.S. household and new housing unit demand projections for 2025 to 2035, and then the following decade, 2035 to 2045. Again, this came out in January of 2025. Ooh, that was a lot of fives in that sentence. So I've gone through this. So here's what to make of this, and here's what you need to consider, especially if you are buying multifamily, you're getting into multifamily, you're considering building multifamily. This could change in the next outline. Or if you're a planner or a planner of maybe a county, a regional district, or a city planner, this is the kind of studies that they're going to be looking at. And so you want to make sure, as a real estate investor and a landlord yourself, that you understand what's going to be happening and how this is going to potentially impact your local area where your rentals are. So here's the conclusions of all this. Household growth is going to be slowing because of population growth. That's pretty self-explanatory, knowing that the baby boomers and other aging folks are going to be dying off. This is resulting in a diverse population, diverse in race, ethnicity, and age. The housing demand is also going down because people are transferring out of their home, out of these big homes with china hutches and dining rooms and all kinds of things, to a very more minimalist lifestyle. Whether it's an older folks that are downsizing into an apartment, or you've got people who are house hacking, where they're renting out rooms or breaking up larger houses. The demand tends to be for smaller units, but a variety of layouts. That's the key here, is a variety of layouts. More single folks are aging without marrying, or if they are marrying, they have no kids, many of them. Some of them are having kids. And then the aging rental stock is either going out, trying to get upgraded as much as possible, which is quite a big capital expenditure, or it's just straight up getting demolished. Again, there's demand for different layouts of different types of units, and multiple generations are living under one roof. Non-white growth, population growth is increasing. Again, overall, household growth is going down. It's going to continue to go down as everyone ages, including me, including my family. We see it, and where you've got multiple generations living under one roof. Household demand, ultimately, in the next 2 decades, is going to go down. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, thanks so much for joining me on My Life as a Landlord today. I know that was just a quick run through of this Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard University, but I wanted to get it out to you because, again, everything is in the details. The numbers matter, and you need to be educated on where your population and your demand and all the demand of your potential tenants are going to be coming from. Okay, with that, I'll let you be.